A pleasant good evening to everyone. Before we move forward, we're just going to bow our heads for a quick word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for your love, for your grace, and your protection over us. I pray that our discussion this evening will be fulfilling and someone will be enlightened, someone will be blessed, and our lives will continue to be a living testimony for you. Please bless us all as we proceed. This evening's program is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to our final panel discussion in celebration of Black History Month. For those of you joining us online, we welcome you, and please feel free to place any questions or comments that you might have in the chat. To our panelists, we welcome you, especially our guest. We are so happy to have you with us this evening. This year's theme for Black History is Our Contribution Continues, and we will be discussing the Canadian experience from the year 2000 to present. We have with us this evening Anton Lewis and Frederick Alexander. Anton, we are so privileged to have you. I had a great conversation with Anton this week, and he shared with me his favorite quote, which I'll read. Rock bottom can teach you lessons mountain tops never will. Anton, this is a powerful, powerful quote. And so we'll now listen to you. You can go ahead and share your story.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure to be able to share my story. So I just want to show my appreciation for having me. So I was actually born in Toronto, but my story starts from me leaving Toronto as a 1-year-old on my first trip to the Caribbean island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I believe I was a very happy baby when I felt that sun. But I spent the next 17 years of my life there. And the reason I touch on that is because my upbringing and experience there definitely helped my transition to life into Toronto. For context, the culture there is your brother's keeper. Everyone knows someone that knows someone. And, it has that sense of belonging and connection and peace. And I grew up in the church as a believer and would often go to Sunday school every week and summer camp every summer. My parents and family there were very entrepreneurial, so I often worked with them at a young age, and that taught me a little bit of discipline, discernment, passion, gratitude, and the list goes on. I say that to say that I had a pretty much a privileged upbringing where I never had to worry about wants and needs, and at the same time I was unconsciously developing traits that I needed to succeed in life. Pretty much in October 2014, I was 18 and I just finished graduating community college with a business certificate. I started working in a hotel as a receptionist, and I started writing songs and working with my friends to do events and YouTube videos. I started getting into the groove of a working adult, but my dad got sick. And within a week's notice in October, we were on our way back to Toronto, Canada. The relationship I had with my dad at that point was a bit more conscious and internal. We knew we loved each other, but we never would show it through verbal communication, only through like the domino table. He was always there though, and he was always holding it down for us and the family. And then here we are now in Toronto in October 10th, 2014, in a cold basement on a bunk bed. And I can hear him wheezing below me, creating nightmares of scenarios that I wish would never come through. Those next 2 years were filled with a lot of trials and tribulations, and I had to adapt very quickly. Within those 2 years, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and oftentimes I would spend sleepless nights in the hospital with him whenever he had checkups, operations, emergency mishaps. We became Batman and Robin, and my mom came and added that necessary aura to make things feel like it was going to be okay. I started writing a lot of music in the hospital, and it felt so therapeutic that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. I was turning negative into positive and fear into hope. My main challenge at that point, though, was I did not have any money to record. I didn't have any connections to the studio. And I was this young Black boy in this big white city. So I started traveling everywhere in the GTA looking for affordable studios, community centers, anywhere to start to record in a booth. But I was often met with rude and helpless responses. But with little success, I picked up, other coping mechanisms, marijuana, alcohol. And at that point, I thought I hit my lowest. I knew I needed to get a job to be able to fund my passion and to be able to support my dad because he was no longer able to work, and my mom as well. She came with us, and it was a very rough time. But my first experience in a job in Canada was also a kind of negative experience because I started working with my half brother, and he did security. So there was a miscommunication within the team, and I was relocated to a post that he didn't assign me to. And when he found me, he yelled and sent me home. And I had no money. I didn't know how to get home. I was still new to Toronto. And I found myself walking up the lonely street, asking for bus change and directions. And from that point on, I knew I had to do this on my own, and I was determined. So for the first half of 2015, I was juggling between hospital visits and interviews. My experience in the job search was very difficult because I would often get interviews but never get callbacks. I applied to many youth programs, and I noticed most of them would just give you jobs in a sort of cookie cutter way, where it was either machine work or labor jobs in warehouses, etc. So I ended up working at a portable amusement park company, and this was a weird experience, but I had to make the best of it. We would work like long hours, operate big rides, but there would be no breaks, and it's still all for minimum wage, but it had to do for now. So eventually that year, I had another position at Cineplex, the theater, Young and Dundas. And that was fun because that was the closest thing to the community and team aspect as it would be back in St. Vincent. We would always gather as a team, sweep theaters one by one, and we would kind of have that brotherhood or communion together, each of us at each shift. At that time, the general manager was Black, and he noticed my hard work and the commitment to do my best. And he offered me a position as a teller or a treasurer at that location. And that was the first time a Black person had that position at that theater. And I was in charge of all the financial operations, the floats for all the registers. And I was essentially like a team leader. I was pretty much after the manager, it would be the supervisor, then it would be me. And that just gave me a sense of confidence that regardless of what was going on, I was still able to secure this position where even though people didn't respect me because of my color, they had to respect me because of my job. Um, and it worked out too because it was Young and Dundas, and my dad was in the hospital at Sick Kids, which was close by um, near Spadina or University Street. So that kind of worked out because whenever he had problems or he had appointments, I could be able to run from work to meet him or run from there to come to work. So it was just funny how that worked out. But meanwhile I was working there, I knew I had to resume school to get a certification. So in September 2015 I started Seneca College studying accounting and finance. And that process was very challenging because the whole registration process, they did not take a lot of my credits from back home. So I had to start from fresh. And I realized that the system coming from community college there to here, that was just a big realization because we're often students, we're customers of the school. And I realized how the school system was more of a business. And I knew I needed to get an education, but the level of respect that even the staff or teachers sometimes would have to students, it was already a rejection. Um, so being in school, I realized that there was no real community, but I wanted to do music, and Seneca had a studio. So that's partially the reason why I chose Seneca. And I caught myself just spending much more time in the studio than in class or studying. So it started to become a bit of a distraction, but I didn't see it as a distraction because I really, I was very connected to it, but it also gave me a level of confidence and liberation. And I was able to create a music meetup with one of the teachers. And every week we would host events and music programs for any artist to come in, and we would share that bond through music. So after that, I realized that I could really do this. And I was struggling to balance school, work, jobs, and hospital visits. But for some reason, I realized God or the universe always place somebody in my life to help get over that extra step. So at work, it was that Black manager who helped me get over that the initial process of transitioning into a job in a low level position to a higher position where I would get respect. And in school, there was a student advisor who took an interest in me and my music and helped me to navigate through the politics of registration. She would help me to sign up for classes that I needed to. You know, if the teacher, for example, the teacher was very rude or anything, she would switch me into another class. She noticed my music was very different, and the story that I had. And she took a very big interest in me and would hire me for shows for her birthday parties, tell all of her friends. So that definitely helped my transition into doing music, but realizing that I did have a talent. So from 2016 to 2017, that was very, very difficult in the sense of going into September 2016, my dad started to get sick again to the point where he was slowly deteriorating. And the doctors started to, at first they were they were so interested in helping him because they had this trial drug, and it was very hyped to see, okay, is this going to work? And it started working and they were so interested, but slowly the drug stopped working. And you notice that the shift from being that interested, they started to just slowly let him deteriorate and not really try all the options, and then they assigned chemotherapy. So going into January 2017, there was basically a countdown to see, okay, how long will that last, essentially. And we could see his body slowly getting skinnier. We did share a moment where his hair was falling out, and I was able to, bond and help him where I was at barber. And that was one of the last funny moments that we had together. And my birthday was May 22nd, 2017, and I was turning 21. And my dad, he struggled so hard to get out of bed to come to it was like a little birthday dinner, and he made sure that he was there. But a week and a half later, he passed away. And that was just a reminder of, one, our mortality, but two, just how real life can get. I thought I hit my lowest point from when my brother was Tito, but now I'm here, and it's like, wow, dad is not here. And just to give a kind of context of how it happened was, I had just got home at 8 a.m. because I started doing music events. So I wasn't at home, and I got home just in time that they had a doctor's appointment at 9. So I got home at 8, and then I looked at him, I realized he wasn't looking too hot. And we were getting ready to go outside. So I live in an apartment, and we were walking from the hallway into the elevator. Then I asked him, how is he feeling? He said he doesn't feel okay. He wants to go back inside and lie down. So then as we were walking back to my apartment door, he collapsed in the hallway. And I was there, screaming. I didn't know what to do. I was asking him, Dad, are you okay? And he said no. And within the minute and a half, he was gone, right in my hands. And, I was screaming. Mom was screaming. She ran inside. I was just there with him, and eventually the paramedics came, and he had signed a non-resuscitation form, but I think they didn't know. So they did resuscitate him, and we met him at the hospital. And he was in and out, but we didn't know that would have been the last day that we would have seen him. And eventually he gave us a smile to maybe say, he's going to be okay. And then he passed away on June 5th, 2017. And that was a big point because that was my rock. I knew that we didn't have that relationship back in St. Vincent, and in that short span of time, we were like best friends, and he sacrificed a lot for us. Being sick, he would still be going getting groceries with me, and you know what I mean. So losing him really, really, really struck a chord with me, and I wrote an album called "Easier Said Than Done" about that whole experience. And to this day, I released it that year, 2017, and then 3, 4 years later, people still message me to say, "Hey, that album was it's amazing. I could feel the pain, and you're able to turn that experience into something that we could consume and relate to." And I know a lot of people lost people as well, so that that really hearing those responses really added a sense of confidence and comfort, knowing that my experience could then be used to help other people. So that year, 2017, it was very rough, but luckily, like I said, God always places someone in my life to get me through a well needed part in life. And before my dad passed away, he was in this group pretty much the people that had cancer, and they knew that their time was limited. So we had a grievance counselor that would come and check in on us, and she really saved my life. Um, she was there from before my dad passed until even till this day. We would just check in, and she would just always let me know that um, my dad, his energy is still around, and he's gone physically, but he's there spiritually, and through me and my principles, and um, and that definitely helped my transition in Canada, because I was able to find the blessing and beauty in the situation. Um, so with her being there, definitely gave me confidence to try again in school. I tried to go back to school, um, and it was just not it was just not having it. I was just tired of being in the system. I knew my music was good, so I'm like, okay, forget that. I'm just gonna do my music. And 2018, all of 2018, I really went hard with my music. I got an internship at a music studio. I attended many music programs where I would work on my songwriting skills, my performance skills, and just looking at my music or my career as as a it's entrepreneurship. Um, Even though, for example, if I introduce myself and I say, "Hi, my name is Anton and I'm an artist," I get a side eye. But if I say, "Hi, my name is Anton, I do jazz rap," it's a little bit more of a positive response. But if I say, "Hi, my name is Anton, I study accounting and finance," you could tell people it's like a different kind of energy. So the fact that I had those two ways to introduce myself, I was able to use them based on the different scenarios or different environments that I was in to now get access to different opportunities. So if we're talking about my transition, I really think the fact that I did music opened a lot of doors, because not that I did music, but I did it so well, and my story, um, being from the Caribbean to coming to St. Vincent, coming to Toronto, losing my dad, trying to start businesses. I started a entertainment company called Vin City, which is what you see on my clothes, pretty much to bridge the connection between St. Vincent in the Caribbean to the city of Toronto. So anything in entertainment, music, videos, any aspect of the arts, that's what I work with. Um, so from 2018 to 2019, I started working at Adidas, and at that point I I was able to use the difficulties that I've been in and realized that I was different, and there was something about me or the way that I operated that I needed to not be scared. I needed to not, I needed to take opportunities as they come. So even at working at Adidas, I quickly became like the head cashier. And And that was a nice experience because one, it had that team aspect that I'm always longing for, that community, that team aspect. And I was able to talk to a lot of different people, but I was always downtown, Young and Dundas. And I think the fact that I was downtown, that really helped me to meet a lot of people, really integrate and be a part of the whole Canadian experience. And performing a lot, I was able to use that as a selling point, because then now I had content for my Instagram and my social media, and 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 I was just, and as much as things got so difficult, there was always a song that made it feel better. There was always someone that popped up out of nowhere and really reinforced my belief in good, in love, in positivity. Um, So now we're in 2019. I finally graduated Seneca College with my accounting diploma. I started um, a company where I am helping younger artists or upcoming artists really find their foot in the industry. I work with a lot of people and artists from the Caribbean that are interested in making music. And we realize that a lot of the music that is promoted and that is out there is very, I don't want to say negative, because it's someone else's story, but the culture is not of an uplifting culture. It's a bit more degrading. And I take pride in the fact that, I don't curse in my music. I respect and uplift women. Um, and I'm always, looking at the brighter days. And that's how people are able to confine within me. And I'm teaching that skill to other artists. Um, and then now, fast forward to 2020, Corona happened, and I took a music business course, where I was able to now be an administrative assistant to one of the best drummers in Canada, and the best pan player, Joy Laps Lewis. And they now have been so inspirational in understanding that you can do music your way and be successful at it, and how to find value in people, but also find the value in yourself so that you can offer it to other people as well. And they I've been working with them. I started off as an internship, and then they hired me to work with them. And I also work with a DJ Power, and he's a well-known DJ in this in pretty much Toronto and New York, and I'm his assistant as well. And I don't know, it's just I've been blessed, you know what I mean? All through 2020 with Corona, I didn't necessarily have a job or have income, but I was still able to, use my experience, my tools to create opportunities where people would just pay me, or if they see my music, they would send donations, you know. So I just realized, if it's one thing that I could take away from my whole experience, is that um, you know life is meant for living. The people around you, your network is definitely your network. Your net worth is your network. And also, just, even though someone leaves us physically, they're still in us, whether it's spiritually, mentally. And I lost a lot of people since then, like my grandma. And it never, like, I'm sad that they're not here with me, but I'm always comforted knowing that there is another angel on the other side looking at me, looking after me. And I could end my story there.
Thank you so much, Anton. Thank you so much for sharing. I have a question for you. Um, I am interested, if you are willing to share. You share so much that you have such a passion for music. Are you able to just share a little bit of a lyric from some of your music that you've written? I would really love to hear.
Definitely. Okay, so I'll do this one. Here we go again. Had to grab my pen, had to vent about everything, how it could have been. Heaven sent, but I always sin. Why you always sin? I don't know, but I guess I'm sick and needed medicine, and that's why they call me tonic. Find it so hard to pretend that life is a beauty, especially when beauty lies within. Oh, I guess the beauty lies within. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. The beauty lies within, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Earlier, you mentioned that you were a believer. You grew up in church. So I'd like to know what your relationship is with God right now. Are you still a believer?
Yes, I'm definitely a believer. However, I believe there's a God. I believe God is love. But more and more as I understand the history of our introduction to Christianity, and the way that we have been idolizing Jesus that is white, and the more I do that kind of deep dive, it's a bit conflicting in the sense that I don't necessarily know what is true based off of what I was learning. So I do definitely believe there's a God, and I always try to find connection with that source. I try to read the Bible, but in terms of figuring out the relationship as a Christian, I'm still a bit conflicted in that sense.
Well, you're in the reading the Bible is important, because for me and my experience with God, I find that whenever I read the Word of God, He always reveals His truth to us. So you continue doing that, reading the Word of God, praying to Him, and He will reveal His truth to you.
Thank you.
I have another question for you. Was it challenging to be accepted for your music when it's different from the mainstream music?
It's definitely challenging, and to this day, I would have been famous by now, because I could flow, and my beat selection, but the topics that I speak of is so against the grain of the system of how Spotify is using us, the school, man, everything like that. So definitely, I know that is gonna make it a bit more difficult, but I know the people that actually listen or actually the fans that I have, I only need 1,000 fans, to be honest. And if I could get that 100 to 1,000, then I'm fine. I don't necessarily need the recognition from what we consider success.
Kathy, can I
Yes.
read one question from YouTube, please?
Yep,
There's
go
one
ahead.
question that's coming in here, and it says, Anton, what inspired you to set a certain standard for your music? Example, no cursing, etc., etc. If you could answer that question for the online viewers, please.
Thank you for the question. Shout out to you too. Um, I just know, one, I grew for starters, I grew up with a lot of women in my family, so there's no way that I could, use any negative ways to describe women. And cursing, I just realized it's sometimes it's not necessary, and I have a lot of nephews and people in St. Vincent that look to me. And if I could set a standard of being a leader and not a follower, and just being a positive role model, so I could, and plus also it's the target market, you know what I mean? I realized a lot of older people around 40 to 50 really like my music, and partially is because I don't curse, and I move in such a respectable way when it comes to music, and that those are the pension money. So I'm kidding, but I don't want to mess up that relationship. So
Can I ask one follow-up question? I don't know if you could do it now, but because I see that your keyboard is behind you and your speakers, is there any chance that you could play one of your instrumentals for us while we're online? So if it's not queued up now, fine, no problem, but maybe by the time we get to the end of this program. And by the way, if you're looking for a pastoral hype man, I'm your guy.
jeez, you have the voice, so you sound very nice there, brother. Satanic.
Tonic. I'm ready. It's sunset and everything, so it's fine.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
now I'm going to open it up to the rest of our panelists. Do you have any questions for Anton?
A question. Hi, Anton.
All right, Jamal.
So I can see where music played a very integral role in your life, um, like in helping you to overcome obstacles or any difficulties. What would be your advice to any young person who may be going through any kind of a difficulty, challenges in life?
I would say first and foremost to talk to someone, because within that conversation you'll be able to maybe learn a bit more about yourself if you already don't know what you like to do. So generally, definitely try to talk to somebody that you trust and try a lot of different things. You know, I music really worked for me, but I also play tennis, and that definitely makes it fun because that kind of crowd that plays tennis here is not necessarily the crowd that listens to music that I make. So I'm able to now, expand into that network and, just never limit yourself. Even though it may seem rough at the moment, there's always a rainbow at the end of every storm. That's kind of how I see life, knowing what I've been going through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Anton. I have a question for you.
I,
This is Eugene. How are you?
I'm good, good. Nice to
Nice
see
to see you again.
you. Yes.
Anton, you said something, it was quite a story that you told here. And you said something that struck a nerve that meant something to me. When you talk about finding value in yourself, and that was one of the things that helped you. How did it, can you just share how, by finding value in yourself, how did it help you to navigate your circumstances and some of the challenges that you have faced during your years when you returned to Canada? Can you just share some of that with us, please?
Definitely. Well, first, the fact that I understood where I came from, seeing my dad and my family work, have their own business as entrepreneurs. They never seen them have to look for a job. So knowing that, I had to humble myself to realize that I needed to figure out how to get to that point. Um, so knowing that, it helped me because I already understood where I came from and the sort of power that is in me, but realizing that the system or the environments don't want me to win as a young Black man.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's value in being Black because, having haters per se or doubters and naysayers, if you could just find a way to turn that into a fuel for success, then and realize that they don't like you for a reason and it's because you're powerful. And even if it's not like a Black thing, it's more you realize that there must be something you're doing right for something negative to come, and with that understanding,
Mm-hmm.
um I felt that the value in that really helped, if that answered the question.
Yes, it does. Certainly. And just a quick follow-up to that question. What advice? I know that as we all know that there are many young Black men or people, youth, having challenges. What advice would you give to a young Black person who might be experiencing some challenges, either in getting a job, getting through in school? What advice would you offer to someone?
It's difficult to give advice in that situation because everyone's story is so different. But
Mm-hmm.
um but like I said, it's as a young Black man, you need to just recognize the lineage that we're from, do a little bit of research into our history and what the world was like when before, this sort of the negative connotations towards Black people and our culture, what the world was like before that, and definitely reach out to people within the community. I think me reaching out to a lot of community centers and seeing the different ways that the community can help each other, even though some groups of people may be doing negative things. There's always that one person that's trying to do positive, and you kind of associate yourself with them more than the negative people, and with hopes that you're able to, help develop each other. And also, I would say to seek a mentor. I had certain angels pop up in my life, and they became mentors, and definitely mentors help keep you on course.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
John, thank you very much for being here. I love your story. You said you're doing jazz rap. Which part is jazz?
The instrumentation.
Instrumentation.
Yes.
So it's more like more than jazz then.
Yes, it's like a twist. It's a little bit of like Coltrane and Sade mixed.
Okay.
But with like the rap of like a Tupac or J. Cole kind of lyrics.
Okay, understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Is there anyone with any more questions?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Anton. Thanks for being on. So I have a question in terms of when you stated a lot of times that you were always looking for a community. You're always looking for people to kind of network with. And so a lot of people find that their church is that way. They're able to connect with a lot of people and in that way that they find their community. So how would you suggest that their church kind of be more community minded so that we can be that, community for others, that are not necessarily in the church, but we're a positive influence in their life? Like, how would you think that we should be going about that?
Well, one of the things that I would advise is to start with the kids or the youth, to see their interests first. I noticed a lot of not a lot of churches, but when you try to figure out ways to help people, it's kind of like you start off with the program or the thing that you're going to use without figuring out what it is you want to actually help with. So I think definitely reaching out to those people to figure out what would interest them. And also, sometimes I think I've been into different church environments, and it's a bit difficult to relate because it's so hard and fast on what is right, what is wrong. But based off of the situation that you're in, one is this, it's also temptation, but it's also just being able to be a little bit open-minded, and because when you say something is wrong, it's like people would take offense and feel like you're judging them off of the bat, and that would definitely deter people from opening up. So if there's a way to sort of just say, hey, we're here for you however you are, and this, I know you want to grow with Christ and grow with God, but slowly you would say these practices are what's in the Bible, and these are what we strive to live for, as opposed to this is what you're not supposed to be doing, this is what you should be doing. And I think if you approach it at that open way, it would encourage a lot more people to come forward and be involved, because they're not judged, they're appreciated, and they're being understood.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for the question.
So Anton, are you still working with Joy Labs?
Yeah, that's there. It's funny because Lorna Lewis, and we share the same surname. So when I got the interview, I'm like, yo, what's up, cuz? That was cool. So I'm basically working as their admin assistant. And they're amazing. Their energy, influence, everything. So I'm glad that I'm able to work with them.
Any more questions? Yep, go ahead, Pastor.
Now that you've shared Larnell Lewis's name, is he involved in any of your music production, or is that perhaps some things you're going to do? I mean, that guy as a drummer is phenomenal, right? I mean, you go on his
Phenomenal.
YouTube page and he's got like over 1 million hits, I think, on some of his videos, right? So like
Yeah.
he's next level. So I would imagine that you do a lot of your chord progressions. Is there any possibility of making that connection that way?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm more of a writer. I use the piano to kind of come up with flows and chords. So I'm not necessarily an instrumentalist. I write and I would work with the producer and say, hey, you could try this, and then they would make it. But I would hope that we can collab at some point. Yeah.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we're going to move on. Thank you so much, Anton, for
Thank you very
sharing.
much. Thank you.
Our next guest is Frederick Alexander. Frederick has been a family friend for a very long time. Him and my brother were friends growing up. And so, Frederick, it's such a pleasure to have you here this evening. Frederick's favorite text is Luke 10:19, which says, "Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you." Frederick, please go ahead and share your story.
Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Frederick Alexander, and I migrated from Grenada over 17 years ago. I remember coming up here around September the 11th. The same year the Twin Tower got bombed down. I remember I was searching for school because my journey coming to Canada was to develop myself and also try to find solution for a condition that I have. So the first school that I went to was called ESL. I didn't know what abbreviation meant at that time, but it was for English as a second language. So I remember when I got to that particular school, there was chaos while I was in the office because everybody started putting the television on. And when that happened, I came up here as a visitor. And eventually they said, well, we cannot take you because you come from an English-speaking country and this is a school for English as a second language. However, when I told them my condition, one teacher by the name of Lalita Arnold, she said, you know what, I will accept you in that class. And my condition is called dyslexic. And growing up back home, when you are left behind in school, they call you illiterate and dunce and all those kind of things. And it was an embarrassing situation for me at the time. However, I started out in the hotel industry as a chef de partie, had realized I had some skills and some passion, and I wanted to focus on that. As I got a little bit older, I migrated to Canada to see if I could get some form of help so that I can deal with that condition that I had once I get to know that it was something that called dyslexia. So moving up here was excited for me, but also I got homesick maybe a few weeks after. And that's when my journey began in Canada and stuff like that.
So tell us what your transition was like, the transition, knowing that you have that disability of dyslexia. How was that transition from Grenada to Canada, and how did you cope?
Well, I remember my mom lived up here, and I said to her, as I get here, I would like to have a job. So I came in like the Monday, and I started job at a place called Bookbinders the Tuesday. I have never done a shift called like 11 to 7, and it was hard. The system was different. I personally used working in the hotel industry, having 1 hour per lunch, and realized, half an hour break and another 5, 10, 15 minutes here, there. And people that smoke or whatever had those kind of break to go out and take a little smoke and stuff, and I didn't have that. But knowing I'm a big guy, I felt that people used to, oh, you're a big, strong guy, I'm going to give you that work, and they kind of push you around. So I've realized that's not what I wanted. So I started getting into groups where I could let them know my profession and what I'm interested in. And then my same teacher, Lalita Anil, I remember in school, we had a program where we had to sing. And then I started singing. And then she said, oh, my daughter is the youth minister of that particular church. And would you like to come and sing there? And that was a church called Malvern Christian Assembly at the time. So I went and I sang there, and then they invited me to join the choir and stuff like that. So that's how I started out. And but my first major job in Canada, I started working at a retirement home. I remember applying for just a cooking job. And when I went at that retirement home, they said, unfortunately, we don't have any openings right now. So I volunteer my time because I personally do things physically with my hands. So I wanted them to see what I'm capable of. And the manager at that specific location said to me, whenever something comes up, I will let you know because there are other locations and stuff. So I continued doing volunteer at that location. And a few months after, he called me and said, there is an opening downtown for 2 positions. One as a food service manager and a maintenance manager. And I said, oh my God, I cannot do this. But I'm going to take the chance. So being dyslexic, no one knows how bad it is, except if I really let them know the challenge that I face with it. I went on a job interview, and that time I knew nothing about cover letter. I just dropped in my resume and I had the interview, and then I got a call from the manager at the time that were there. And he said to me, we are calling you for a second interview, but tell me, why should I call you for a second interview? I said, I really don't know. He said, number one, you don't have Canadian experience. You didn't have a cover letter. You didn't call back, because I didn't know the principle of the American sort of principle applying for jobs. Anyhow, I got the opportunity to work there as a food service manager for 7 years. It was frightening. It was scary at the same time. But I decided if I don't take that chance, growing up as a Christian back home with my grandmother, they teach about faith. He will always make a way for you. And the chef that I'd worked with back home said, don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strength. So I let that be my sort of motivation to do the best that I can. And one of the ways that I usually learn is like looking at great chefs on television, getting ideas. And that is where I build up the craft and the skills that I realized that I could do with my hands. And that's when my journey had started in Canada. A few years later, the company got sold. I lost my job. And then I decided, I had a coach, and I let him know my condition and my situation. And he said to me, there are programs that are out there that you could start second career. You could do entrepreneur. You could go to college or whatever it is. And I said, entrepreneur sounds okay, but I want to go to college, because I thought back then, well, going to college and stuff, oh, it's okay. I'm a good cook. I will just go and pass this easily. So I signed up for that program at Centennial College in 2017. And one of the things that got me in there, because of the period of time that I've been in the industry. And when I let them know I'm dyslexic, they said to me, do I have any proof to state that I am? And I said, no, it's someone that let me know that that's a condition. So they also had recommended me to one of the services that they use for the school program to go and get assessed. The assessment was for about 3 hours. So when I passed that and I got through in the college, I had also to do some exam and stuff like that to get into the college. So I remember vividly that they said, okay, well, you have to write up on something, almost like an essay and stuff like that. And I got through with that with help. And I thought that was the end of it. So my first class, my first English class, I remember my professor said, you'll have to write an essay. And I said, I'm in the wrong class. I've never done that before. So it was scary. And I said to myself, I cannot do this. And one of the services that they provided at the college that I had attended, they have a department called the disability department. So all of my textbook had also gone audios. And so I ordered for my textbook for that first semester. It took a while before I received it. And they had also transferred that textbook on audio for me. So I was way behind with my classes. And I thought that the professors were going to know my situation. But I also had to provide proof that this is my situation, and I'd also have a scribe, note takers when I'm in classroom and stuff like that. And I remember my first few months, I said, you know what? I will continue this. I will not give up, because I wanted it so bad. And growing up in the Christian faith, it also gives you the ability that you cannot do anything by yourself. Mm-hmm. But there are the souls that is there who is my Lord and Savior, who I can call upon. There are days I cry because you're realizing even though he's your source, you still have to get maybe physical help or mentors or people that would able to assist you to get to where you want to go while you're on your journey. And it was tough and challenging. So my first semester, I allow myself to meet up with groups and study in groups. I never knew that I had also do so many courses or take so many classes for culinary or for cooking. I'm doing excellent in the lab, getting A and A pluses, but then I have to do English. There was something they call culinary math. It is something where you had to do lots of conversions with different measurements. And as I said, being dyslexic in the island, your teachers or who used to be in the classrooms with you had never identified that in you. And because that was never identified in you as an individual, they're thinking maybe that you're lazy and you're dunce. So you were always left behind. And I used to shine away from that as well, because you don't want them to call you to do anything because you're not good at it. And I always used to pretend to people that I know it and I'm okay. And growing up with my grandmother back home, she always used to be in the garden. And there was no one to really look and see how well you are doing in school to see if you have a problem or a challenge. And I was left behind and I never liked it. And when I migrated into Canada, that's one of the reasons why I came here. And it took me a while before I could have really looked into it. I thought college was something that I was going to look into, but college was a fast-paced program, institute where you just go and they give you some stuff to study and do. So I developed a relationship with the professors and let them know my situation and my conditions. And they had made time to ensure that I was successful in the program. I remember even you one time I had asked for you to come and be my scribe or the person that will allow me to do my exam. And one of the things that they had said to me, you cannot have any information based on the subject that I'm doing. You're just going to read out my question verbally so I can give you the answers. And when that happened, because they trust me well enough, they allow me to get a friend to come and do that for me. And I wanted to let you know I'm grateful for that. So during that journey now, I realized in math and English, I was not doing that well. I went back to the disability department and let them know that I realized that maybe you all are setting me up for failure, because here am I in this room here doing my exam, no one to ask a question, and I cannot do certain things. And the information that I got, if you go into an institute and you have some form of disability, the institute's supposed to have professions there that know about it. And I've realized they didn't have anyone that knew about dyslexia or dyslexic to assist with. So they allow me to have a little bit more flexibility. Most professors sat with me because they realized I had the knowledge and I could have talked about it, and allow me to do a lot of my exam verbally so that I could have passed my courses. The course was for about 2 years. I ended up staying 3 years because I took a lighter course load and I failed a couple as well. But I never gave up because I knew that I'm just going to say something. My mom had me when she was 13 years old because she was raped by my dad. And I only got to know about it when I got up here as an adult. And none of my other siblings, either my mom had went to college or university. And I wanted that so bad because I wanted also to be the best brand that I can for me, because I've realized having a job, you could have it today and lose it tomorrow. And I had a dream and a passion in me that I wanted my own business. And I felt that was the only security. So I really wanted it so bad that I thought after when I finished college, I was going to have a better opportunity, but it became harder. And after I graduated, I had a job just before graduation, and I decided that I'm going to have a celebration. I'm going to give thanks. So I invited some of my clients, because I'm a caterer, I'm a chef, by the way, and let them know who I am, because at my first job, I hid it from them. And I used to feel like I was in prison. I'm going to work and I'm like on a suicidal journey because I'm not being myself. And after I finished college and I realized that there is lots of people out there that have those conditions, but that doesn't make them less of a person because they don't have the academic as people that they call regular. And I've realized what I'm good at, I've went to college to pursue to become a profession in that. And I've succeeded, not by the grade that I got, but by the effort that I've made to be better than what I was. And once I've realized that, I decided I'm going to have that celebration. Let the place, at that time I was working at Tropicana Community Services. They had hired me there for a position to prepare meals for youth. And I let them know who I am so that the expectation that they have of me would not be more than what I am, in the sense of being the best employee that they have based on the position that I hold there. And I let them know. And after that, I felt good about it. But after that, I felt that because it was made known, people started treating me a little bit different. However, I left and I went to a place, a hotel called Four Seasons, just before the pandemic. During that time, I stayed home for about 6 months without a job. And that's where my faith and my belief in myself start to develop, and I start to listen to more inspirational preaching, people that been inspired, people that made it. And it had changed my whole perspective in life. You could become anything that you want because your source is coming from the person that created you. And I've realized that the Bible itself for me became a manual where it have everything that I need. And I didn't need a physical Bible anymore. My phone, when I look at the text with Moses, when God approached Moses and he said, he could not have speak. And he said to Moses, what you have in your hand, it's a rod, use it. And I realized the technology that we have right now, you could use it for both good and evil. And I've realized it is something I could use to empower me. Use it to send a message to you. I could dictate to it. It can talk back to me. And that's how my life runs right now, even though people may not know that's how my life is right now. And I want to thank God for the mentors and all of the people that made me the person that I am today. But I know that God set me up where he had put people in position where you will able to do this. And there are times I feel like I want to end my life because I'm at a certain stage where things may not be going good. But I've realized my mind is so powerful. I cannot use it against me. I have to make it work for me. And I had also figure out ways, how can I make my mind work in my favor? And I keep myself among people that have the faith. I love to sing, so I get myself involved in singing group. I know myself when you did some before, and try to be the best brand that I can. Yeah, so that's part of my journey.
Okay, Frederick. I'd like to ask, where are you now? Tell us more, like, what are you doing right now? What are you involved in now?
I work with Tropicana again, just around Corona time, in the middle of Corona last year. They had called me to work with them. Right now, I'm in a program where we do food drive and other donations for people that are not really less fortunate, but might need an assistant. So I'm the assistant manager of the program. I'm the driver and also the chef at that facility as well, where we do like and try to empower youth. So, and also I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own company. At first it was called Fred's Touch Catering Services. Now we're rebranding it, and it is called Nutmeg Creole Kitchen. And I also do personal chefs for individuals. So even during the pandemic, for people that want to have something at their home with their family, I will go and cater for them personal services. And that's where I'm right now in my journey. But most of it all, I think that it allowed me, the pandemic had brought so many positive things with me to make me know that I cannot do anything without Christ. I also, because we all make plans, I had all these big plans to open up a restaurant last year, and I've realized without him, nothing is possible. But with him, all things are possible. And those things had shaped me into a person where I've realized that my dependence only is on him. And I wouldn't want to say only being a Black man, but being a product or child of God, where, he said, I will give you dominion and power over everything that exists, as the plants, the bird, the fish, the sea, everything. When I realized that we were born with everything inside of us, it's only to activate those things that Bill Gates is not more than me. The person that Ford is not more than me. I learned to discover who I am and who I was truly born to be, and what purpose I'm on this earth for, and the service I could provide that I could share with people. Because when you look at anything that God had created, the trees that bears fruit, they don't eat its kind. It is for us as human beings. What can I provide in society that I can give back? So I can say, yes, when I leave this earth, I live empty. I'm satisfied. And that is why I have a dream to open up my own business so that I can provide service, employ people, and also be a motivator for people that have the same condition like me. And I would not say youth per se, but there are people like me that in such parents, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunties, that going under that same challenge where they may not be represented, or they're afraid, or they don't have a voice, or they're not in that stage where I'm at right now to talk about it, or realize there are ways that you can live with a condition and be the best person that you can, and let people know that, listen, I am me because God created me. And when I realized that when God said he created us in his own image and likeness, it's not about the physical structure, but about his principle and how you can live and live a life in its full entirety, knowing that he loves us. But we all have to plan and make sure that we be the best person that God had placed us on this earth to be.
Frederick, I really admire your strength. Against all odds, you are succeeding. Don't ever think that you're a failure. I really do admire your strength. And I have eaten your food. You are very, very talented. And whenever I look at it's not just the way you cook and how you cook, and how the food tastes, it's great, but I see your heart on a plate. The way, you present everything, the crisscross chicken legs and, all those creative ways that you will present. I see your creativity on a plate, and you're very, very talented. And sometimes it's not all about the academics and, the math and the English and the science, but our skills are important, right? We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need great chefs like you. And it was just this month for Valentine's, we enjoyed a really great dish from you.
Thank you.
It was very good. I'm not just saying that because you're my friend, but you are very, very talented. And I love food, and it was great. Okay, so I really want to encourage you, and I really thank you for sharing your story. I can't imagine, living with this condition. I can't fathom it. There is no way. And I just want to say, that you are truly, you are a blessing. You are a blessing to me, to my family. And when I look at your life and how far you've come, you are really, really a strong person. So thank you for sharing. Are there any questions from our panelists or from the chat room?
Yes, I have two questions. They're somewhat related but different. So my first question, by the way, thank you for being on. My first question is about self-esteem. How did you find confidence in yourself, even with knowing that you have this condition? Because you did mention that back home you would be left behind, or you would be called names when you're not up to speed with everybody else, right? So how would you find that confidence and self-esteem within yourself to be, the person that you are right now?
I feel cooking was one of the things that I love. I remember when I used to live, at a time I lived with my mom, and we were living close. I went in the city. I'm a country boy. And we were living close to the school that I used to attend. I went to St. George's SDA school. That was an Adventist school. And my mom, she used to get up in the mornings and cook meals. So you have to have that for breakfast and lunch. So I used to take some of my friends, go home and cook. And it used to taste good. I got a lot of whooping for that, but I realized that is what really had grounded me. But also, I have to survive. And I remember in the islands growing up, if you're not academically successful, you have to learn a trade. So growing up with my grandmother, she had sent me to do tailoring. That is what they call like fashion designer or something like that. But back then you will make buttonholes for months and they're not teaching you anything else. You will hem pants for months. And I've realized that's not what I want. So there was a family member who had a construction company, and she said, I will ask them. And I started as a young man and pushing barrows, and I said, can I do this? This is not for me. So a few years later, there was a program at one of the top hotels in Grenada, where they had a program that was funded by the Canadian government for apprenticeships for people that are interested in cooking or in the hotel industry. So I end up going to that program. But knowing that I have that challenge, I asked the person that was facilitating the program for the number, and I said, I want to talk to you. I said, could you please don't call me up to do anything? This is my situation. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I had built that relation with that person that was facilitating the program. Within that program, they had divided the program into 3 groups: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was in the breakfast group, and I did very well. I was one of the person that they asked to work with the hotel at the time. And I didn't have a place to stay in the city. They had rented a place for me, give me furniture, and that is when I started my career. And I started developing, even though I didn't know it was dyslexic at the time, I started developing that boldness because I finally discovered who I was to an extent. And I knew I had something to give, and that started building me up as someone, you know what, I'm okay. I have a job. I've realized people went to school in my community, had the opportunity to have degrees, and they've been on the street smoking and wasting their life away. And I did not choose that part. So I've realized, hey, I'm okay.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
My second question was, you gave reference to a time where you felt really down and you kind of had some sort of suicidal ideation. And you kind of spoke a little bit to how you were able to kind of bring yourself out of that. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that might be in that same situation that you're in right now? Because since we are in a pandemic and people are in rough times, and people might find themselves in those types of situations, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that is finding themselves not like, you know, hopeful of the future and stuff like that? What would you give them as advice to kind of pull themselves up?
Appreciate spending time for yourself. I've discovered within that time that love is the greatest gift. And during that time, I've realized if love is the greatest gift, it is something that I want. And I've realized it's not a feeling, it's a principle and laws that really govern that. And when the Bible says, love your neighbors as yourself, he's teaching you, first love yourself. Because before you could give someone something, you have to have it for yourself. And I have listened to the word of God day in and day out, and spending time with myself and realizing that I want that gift. How can I get that gift? So anyone that is going through this, appreciate the time that you have for yourself and find ways where you can discover who you are as a person and reach out to people. Reach out to people. Technology was there, and it was a time where if you didn't know how to use technology, you was going to learn and get down on your knees and spend time, communicate. I've realized communication is not a Christian thing. It's something for human being to do. That is the only way you could get to the source of the person that created you as a human being. And when Jesus Christ was on the cross and the thief said, remember me, he said, from now on, you will be with me. And I've realized that once you call upon him, he will answer. And that is where I begin to develop and see that I cannot just live as a computer that is on my desktop, but deep inside to the hard drive in me and put this out so that it's not only that I can feel it or I can do it, but others can see the light in me as a person.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I want to commend you for being brave enough to, talk about your journey and your challenges that you were facing, because a lot of people find it difficult to disclose that type of information. Being a man and a Black man at that, you don't find that that kind of thing very often. So I want to say thank you for sharing that. And I know that you're going to be an inspiration to many people who are hearing this now or in the future. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks. Awesome.
Okay, Fred, I have a question. As a child, I mean, I know as a child, I was a bad stutterer. I stammered a lot and I was teased by some of my friends until I even cried. So with your situation, how did you feel when you were called names by maybe a teacher because because of your condition? And were you teased by your friends or bullied?
I was bullied by my friends. I was bullied by my friends, and by your close friends, especially when they want to show themselves off. They will say, "Don't worry with him. He's ignorant. He's illiterate." And I used to cry a lot, but during those times, I didn't know much about God, even though I grew up in a Christian home. You just find ways. One of the ways that get me out of it a bit back then is to dress, like make myself look good, because that's all I had. Present myself well. And whatever I do, try to do it the best way that I can, fight hard and show myself in different ways that will not make me focus on it and even others. So I find things that might almost take the place. Cooking was one of it.
And I'm sure as you cooked for your friends, I think that sort of limit what they limit them from bullying you, right?
I give them reason to find something to appreciate me, not even knowing that is what I was doing, or that would have taken the place of, that part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Fred, thank you for being with us. Because your brain is wired differently, yet it can be corrected. Do you have hope, or are you in a program where you can correct the way your brain is wired?
I had hope. Once I moved up here, that was why I came to Canada. I was a chef de partie at one of the biggest hotels in Grenada back then. And I always offered position as maybe to be a head chef, to be a supervisor, to go in another island to represent. I remember the first culinary competition that took place for culinarians in the Caribbean was held in Miami. I was the only Black pastry chef on the island. So I was automatically on the team because most of the island had foreigners pastry chefs, so they were not qualified to go. So I ended up going and represent Grenada in the culinary arena back then. But correction in the sense of to correct it, I've realized that when I moved up here, I didn't have status, so I was on a waiting list to get it correct. And it never happened. And I got a job as a food service manager at a retirement home, and I've realized that I know my weaknesses and I've learned to identify my staff strength. I have learned to be one of the best in the industry back then, where we used to have middle managers meetings, and it used to be held at my location. And I used one of the things that my manager had said to me, focus. One of the things that you need to, one of the two things that matter, don't go over budget and make sure that the residents are happy. So I kept those things in mind, and I make sure that I train my staff well. I will do anything, like I will sweep the floor. I will find out when they need time off. I will be there. I will be there for them when they want the day off, and nobody else will say, okay, I will take the day off. So I've learned to study people and figure out what their needs are and forget what my shortcomings are and focus on how can I be the best person in that body that I'm in right now. And that is what helped me. So focusing on that, it may never change, but God always look out for me because I always find ways to push myself beyond my disability right now.
Hi, Fred. Thanks for sharing your story. I love cheesecake. Would you be able to make me a cheesecake one day?
Most definitely. Guess what? The restaurant is called Nutmeg Creole, and we're going to
let me write that down.
Yes. Nutmeg Creole Kitchen.
Okay.
And we're going to have different flavored stuff that surround that. And even now you could get it. So you could get my information after, and that will work out. Yes, you will.
Okay. So my question is, and it's coming off what Alfred just asked. Now, is this a condition for which, let's say, training or counseling is available? And is that something that would improve with that kind of exposure?
Yes, I will say, but I do think the earlier it identifying an individual, it will be, the chances are greater, because what I've learned about it, it is some step that you miss within your learning stage, within that time frame, to connect words and letters and sounds. And I think that I missed that based on my system. And with counseling and stuff like that, I felt that everybody's different. Some people may have it, but it may not be as bad as mine. And there are different ways to learn. And right now as an adult, honestly, I believe that when Jesus Christ was setting up his disciples, he was building up a team of people. And when you really look at it, he built up a team of people that have different skills in order to, and Jesus Christ is about management, managing yourself, managing what he placed on this earth for. And if you cannot manage certain things, that's why when you look at firms, they have a marketing department, they have a accounts department. And with my life, I've learned that if I'm not good at something, get someone who can get it done and get it done well. And that's how I manage myself right now with my life and also the business that I'm running right now.
Great. Thank you so much.
May I give two questions that have come in online? One question comes in from Deborah, and I think the name was put there. But the question that Deborah has is, there a way that we can order food from you? So if you tell us, we can put it in the chat group for you, Frederick, and then that way we can perhaps get some business going for you. The second question that's also being posed here online is, Frederick, what advice would you give or offer to students who are dyslexic and or maybe struggling academically and wish to advocate for themselves at school? Any advice?
One of the things I would say to individuals, try your best to figure out where your strength lies. God gave everybody gifts and talents. And sometimes we focus on what the system in society classify as you have to have. God made everybody unique. There were millions, excuse my language, millions of sperm that had also make it to that egg, and I made it. They made it. So we were, from the time we enter into our mom's womb, we are the winner. We were chosen. So whatever challenges that comes, if it cannot be figured out by society system, try to figure out what's inside of you as an individual that you can bring out to ensure that when I go to the dentist, I don't go to the dentist because I like him. I go to the dentist because he provides a service. I go to any place that provides service because the service is provided. So whatever you see inside of you as a person, try to master that craft and be the best in it so people can come to you for that service. On the other hand, there are in North America, there are so many support that are there. Try to get the sources that are there. I remember when I was in my last year in college, there was organization or companies that hire people with disabilities. So register under those companies, seek for advice, let your request be made known to people within the industry, and try to get as much knowledge as possible so that when you're having an interview with someone, you could also interview them. So say, listen, this is my condition. What is there to make my job be efficient? So here is my situation. I work at an organization now, and I said, hey, this is my condition, but this is also the program that are available that can make me be more efficient with my job. Would I able to have that downloaded on my computer so I can get my job done more efficiently? And it's a right of every single citizen, not only of society, but of God, to have that privilege. So make sure that you gain as much knowledge as you can so you can advocate for yourself, because our tongue and in our mouth is not only to speak or eat or anything, but it's to make us learn to negotiate as individual, because God gave us that ability that everyone could think for themselves and try resources that are there so that they can definitely get over that. Knowing the second part, what you asked me for, this is the information. You may not be able to read it, but it's called Nutmeg Creole Kitchen Inc. On Instagram.
Just a little bit higher for us. Hold it up just a little bit higher. It's off screen. A little bit higher, a little bit higher. All right, perfect. No, not so high. A little bit lower. There you go. You're perfect right there. Go ahead. Say it again for us, please, Frederick.
Is Nutmeg Creole Kitchen Inc. for Instagram. You could check out Fred's Touch on Instagram and it will get you to that link as well. And the telephone number is 647-857-9718. We do delivery and pickup right now, and menus on the weekend. So, but Kathian is also one of my advocates too, unfortunately. So if anybody else need any information, she definitely can share it with them after the program. I'm not hearing you.
You're on mute, Pastor.
Elder Yadeen's hand is up. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, Fred. Thanks again for sharing your story. I have one question. In your journey, one of the things you mentioned, you had a purpose for coming to Canada. And my question is, where do you see, after all these years in Canada, where do you see yourself as a Black man or as a Black immigrant in Canada? Where do you now see yourself? How would you describe your position where you are?
Willing to learn, willing to give everything that is in me that is good and pure with good intention to society. It comes, I want it to come out in my words, my thoughts, my deed, my action, and even my cooking. And I think that I wish I could have said my life did not have to say like, what's the word? I wish my life could have been like, been on a television and it did not have to, they didn't have to do any like adjustment, or I wish my life was pure. Unfortunately, it is not like that. But I think within Christ, everything is possible. Now, my past is just to use as reference, but my now, what is important for me? So my now is this moment. What impact could I have in society? What impact do I have being on this program now? And I don't just want it to be for me, because Jesus Christ's example, anything that he do is for others to get some form of comfort, some form of education, some form of something that they could apply into their life that could bring some positive change in them. And that is where I am right now in my life, to be the best brand that I can, that when I leave this earth, I could say that I don't need a tombstone to say, well, this is who I was. I want it to be in the mind of people and society forever. And that is where I'm at right now.
Right, right. And thanks. And if I just make a comment, one of the things that I admired in your story is your level of resilience and also your openness. You recognize that you had, for the lack of a better word, like a disability or a limitation. But the important thing, what I find admiring about your story, you did not allow your disability, your limitation to keep you back. And one of that being transparent, open, willing to share has really helped you. And I think it's a great story for many other, let us say, immigrants coming to Canada who may come and may have some challenges, right? That they too can succeed, right? And it takes resilience, it takes determination. And again, I just want to thank you for your story. And I hope that others who might be listening also may be inspired by your story and can have something that can really help them in dealing with some of the struggles or challenges that they might be experiencing right now. And thanks again, a great story.
Thank you so much for having me as well. Thanks for those questions.
Do we have any more questions?
Can I go back to Anton with a question?
Sure.
Yes,
So
please.
I know, Anton, when you spoke about your involvement in church while you were back in St. Vincent. When you transitioned or when you came to Canada, did the church have any role or impact in helping you to adjust to the way of life here?
Yes, it did, in the sense of it was able to bring me back to what I knew, and the things that that I was rooted in my foundation of church back there. There was a church specifically near to where we lived that my dad really liked. And Pastor, I forgot his name, but we were going to that church a lot, and he was just very real and open to everyone, and that is where we had the funeral service as well. But yeah, the church did play a role in me coming back. And sorry,
That's
just
it.
one thing, I just want to shout out my mom because she was a big part of the story. So I just didn't want to leave her out in case she was watching.
I'm sure she is.
Okay. Hi,
So
Mom.
Since Anton, since you mentioned that, can you tell us again the name of that song that you said inspired you, or that you wrote after your father passed, sooner or something?
Yes, it's called Beauty, Bauty. So if you search for TXNIC, tonic, and you search tonic/beauty, you'll be able to find it.
Sorry,
Beauty.
spell tonic again.
TXNIC. TXNIC.
Okay.
Hmm.
And it's on any platform, YouTube, anywhere.
Beauty tonic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else to add?
I would
Okay.
just like to say thank you to Udine, Alfred, Gemma, Joan, Andre, Brianna, Fred. Thank you all for sharing this space with me. And it was a pleasure hearing your story, Fred. And I'll definitely check out Nutmeg Creole. And yes, so I just want to wish everyone a great day and the year to come.
Do you
Thank
have any,
you.
Anton, do you have any last thoughts for us? Anything else you'd like to say? Any encouraging words?
Yes, I just wanted to show appreciation for what you guys are doing. I was watching the previous episodes as well, and this is definitely a part of the community building and encouragement, and opening space, a safe space for people to tell their story. is very important as we move forward as people, as a culture. So for you guys who are putting, your time and effort into organizing this, especially the church, and it's just very important, and it's very, very appreciated. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Frederick, do you have any closing thoughts?
I want to say thanks so much to everyone on the panel, and also granting me this opportunity where I not only could share that story, but also I think for me, sharing a story is not only for the listeners, but also for me as an individual, because I do think that it brings back you to a place where I didn't do that on my own. And I want to thank you guys so much for the support and everybody else that support me throughout my journey in my life, back in Grenada and even here. There's a few shout out I could give to so many people. My mom, Gavin Jones, Lalita Arnold, Kathy and one, my sisters, my brothers, and all of those professors that have been there through my journey in school. And most of it all to the mighty creator. So I just want to say thank you so much for that platform. And I hope that I could do more. And whenever an opportunity comes on, I could be part of sharing and in any avenue that I can. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So we definitely gonna check out Anton's music and Frederick's cooking. Oh, and by the way, that's two things that we love as a people: food, good food, and good music. So we're gonna check Frederick and Anton out, and they're great, talented young men. This has truly been an inspirational discussion. And Frederick, I'd like to thank you. And Anton, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your story with us this evening. Our contribution surely continues. It continues with me. It continues with you and for generations to come. Today, Pastor Daniel summed it up well when she said, our contribution continues slow, but with a steady progression. What should have brought an end to us only made us stronger. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for the people online. Thank you for viewing, all our panelists. We thank you so much for your commitment. We've been on here for the entire month of February, and we had some really great and inspiring conversations. So to end off this evening, we'll ask Brother Knight to close for us with a prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the story of both Anton and Fred. We ask that you will bless and strengthen them. Grant them success, dear God, in all of their endeavors. We thank you for the listening audience, the viewing audience, and we pray, dear God, that as they have listened, as they were blessed, that our blessings will not stay with us, but will be transferred to those in our community. Be with us during this untried week and continue to be with us, and we continue to give you the praise. We thank you. We give you the honor too, in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.